Good afternoon. We are so excited that you are here joining us for our very first webinar in this series. My name is Kim Sterrett. I'm the Director of Parent and Family Programs, and I have the pleasure this afternoon of being with three of our finest Career Center staff members who will introduce themselves in a few moments. But they're going to talk a little bit about how to best support your student as they prepare for the career fairs that are coming up, whether your student is attending the career fairs this fall or future career fairs, so that you can best support them. And from here, I will turn it over to them so that they can tell you a little bit more how to support your student.
Hi everyone, I'm Mary Lowry, Director of Career Education, and I'm joined by my colleagues Christy Wheeler-Griffin and Leanne Wilson. Together we're going to share some tips for making the most of the career fair experience. We're focusing today on our two larger career fairs, the General Interest and Business and Technical and Engineering fairs. These will be, as you can see, on September 27th and 28th. The topics we plan to cover are overview and general tips, so you get an understanding of what the career fair is, appropriate attire, employer research, handshake, posture, and eye contact, elevator pitch, which is the introduction, and follow-up, how students can follow up with employers. As I mentioned, the career fairs will be held in Coleman Coliseum here on campus. Students will enter through these main doors, and most students find that they like to take the Crimson Ride because we do ask them to dress in business professional or business casual, and many don't want to trek around campus and go to class in that attire, and so many of them will take the Crimson Ride, and we encourage students to look for a route where they can do that. When students enter and check in, they will receive a program that shows the employer attendees and their table locations. Students will also see the majors that employers are seeking. And we'd like to point out that at the General Interest and Business Career Fair, many employers will want to talk to all majors because in that case, they're looking for the overall skill set and the professionalism of the student. And so we encourage students to understand that no matter their major, they have an opportunity to talk with employers and look for internships or possible full-time jobs. We want them to be prepared to have conversations that will allow them to tell employers how they can bring value to that organization. And so we'll talk in a little bit about employer research. In the lobby of the Coliseum, we have a designated space for students to take a minute and look at the program and see where the employers are located. We know that for some, just entering the concourse can feel overwhelming, and they may feel a little bit lost if they just strike out and try to find the different employers they want to speak with. So it helps if they take a minute to kind of map out a route and in some cases to do additional research. We know that if we can talk with students beforehand, if you all talk with your students beforehand, they're going to be doing employer research in advance. But then sometimes they might get to the career fair and think, oh, there's an employer I would like to speak with, but I haven't had a chance to look at their website. So this gives them a space to do that and maybe make some notes before they go in. Students are encouraged to bring not only resumes to the career fair, but resumes that we have taken a look at and helped them with, and certainly that they have updated. Some employers will not collect resumes at the career fair, and we tell students don't be put off by that, don't take it personally, that that's just not their practice. Some may say instead to apply online or to upload their resume through the Career Center website. We'll talk a little bit about that. It's a platform called Handshake. But we tell students, be prepared anyway. Bring copies of your resume for every employer you intend to talk with, but bring some extras in case you come across an employer that you hadn't really thought about talking with, but that you would like to have that conversation. We're glad that students attend the career fairs in the numbers that they do, but that means that at some point during the day, there are going to be a lot of students, sometimes hundreds, walking through the concourse. And so there may be occasions when students will have to wait to speak with an employer. And we tell them just to practice those common courtesies of giving the student space, the student who's doing the talking, giving them space, and also while they're standing, to maintain that confident posture and that pleasant expression. We've heard from some employers that they will see a student who has that body language and that confident demeanor, and they will actually reach out to the student and try to engage them in conversation. Likewise, for the students doing the talking, we encourage them to just be mindful that there may be students standing behind them, and we don't want them to rush through their conversation, but at the same time, we want them to kind of listen for that natural break in the conversation with the employer, maybe be aware of the employer's body language if they're starting to look around, and bring that conversation to a natural close before it gets awkward, and certainly before other students begin to feel like they may be monopolizing that time. One of the things that we've offered in the past few years that can be very advantageous to students who may be not quite ready to attend the career fair, or who may be planning to attend the career fair, but they just want a little extra insight, is something we call the career fair preview. This is an opportunity for students to hear tips from employers before the doors open, and employers are very often going to share things like what they hope students will say when they come up and have that conversation, maybe some of the mistakes that they think students are making while they're at the fair. And students have given us feedback that this was very beneficial, even if they're hearing from employers that they're not necessarily going to talk with. They feel like they have a good understanding of the employer's perspective and have a better idea of how to navigate and to negotiate those conversations. For students who want to sign up for the Career Fair Preview, we encourage them to go to our website, career.ua.edu, and they can log in to Handshake, which is our online recruiting platform. By going into Handshake, students can do a variety of things, including uploading their resume for us to review and eventually to apply for jobs. But also they'll see our list of events, career fairs being among those, and also this particular event, the Career Fair Preview, and they can register there. It is not required to register for the career fair in order to attend, but we do require students to register for the Career Fair Preview because there are a limited number of spots available, and we need to know in advance who's planning to attend so we can communicate with them about what to expect. We're going to transition a little bit to some specific advice on other ways students can make impressions, and we'll start with attire. We know that there can be a lot of confusing terms for students. There may be things they attend on campus that do not have a dress code. So we try to communicate this very clearly before students arrive that day. We do require students to dress in either business professional or business casual attire. And we try to emphasize to them as well that they don't need to spend a fortune. They don't even need to go out and spend any money if they do not have a suit and they choose to wear one. We have what we call Crimson Career Closet. And again, that can be learned, you can learn more about that on our website. But this is a place where students can go and borrow attire. It's already cleaned, it's already pressed. They don't even have to dry clean it to return it. They just borrow that attire and return it. We don't want any student to feel that they cannot attend the fair because they don't have something appropriate to wear. And so we encourage them to check this out. You can see some other tips there. We encourage wear minimal to no jewelry, don't have any overwhelming scents or anything, because we don't want them to be remembered by employers for those kinds of things. We want them to have those good conversations and make a good impression. With business professional, in this case, we really try to stress to students that, again, it's not about the expense. It's about a nicely fitting, appropriate suit. We know that not all suits are created equal. This can be especially true of skirt suits. So we stress to students to be sure that when they're looking at suits to wear, that they really are paying attention to skirt lengths, to just the appropriate fit. We hear this feedback from employers as well. So we want students to, again, just to make that good impression. Business casual can sometimes take on a lot of different meanings, and we know that students can find this confusing. So we offer guidelines in our career guide, which is available in PDF form on our website. And we also, when we can, provide images so students will see what exactly we mean by business casual. Again, it's really about the attire fitting properly as much as it is about fabric and styles. Showing an example of what's not appropriate can also be helpful. So we've pulled together some images that represent things we've actually seen at career fairs in the past. I think sometimes we get surprised and then we realize maybe the information is just not out there and available to students. So we try to, with images, make it clearer. While these selections may be appropriate in other settings, they're not appropriate at career fairs. Our goal is to have students attend and feel confident in what they're wearing and how they're approaching employers, and certainly in the conversations that they're having. I'm going to turn it over now to Christy Wheeler-Griffin, Manager of Experiential Learning, to tell you more about researching employers as preparation for having those good conversations.
So you've already heard a little bit about Handshake already. Handshake is UA's online recruiting system that allows students 24/7 access to search jobs, apply for on-campus interviews, and even make appointments with us if they need help with resumes or other career services. What we really like about Handshake, in addition to its versatility, is employers from around the country use Handshake, even those who don't necessarily attend our career fairs. So there's a lot of information for students to find on Handshake. In addition, they can customize their accounts so that they can get knowledge about jobs out there that might be a good fit with their majors and interests. As far as employer research goes, here are some tips for students to consider when they're researching employers. One thing that we want them to consider when they're researching is their needs, not only the company needs, but maybe their own needs and values. For instance, if a student has an interest in furthering their education, they want to take a job with a company, then they might want to consider, does that company offer some type of education benefit or some type of tuition reimbursement? There are a lot of different things, and we offer more information specifically about those values, and we have a employer research worksheet even in our offices that we can offer students to reflect upon these things. So we want students to adapt their resume in advance, but even if they go to the career fair and decide to apply later to a position after they've learned more, often they can find information on the employer's website about jobs, and then they can customize their resumes and apply online. To research employers, there's a lot of good information, even starting directly on the employer's website, things about the employer history and background, even their products and services. And here's a list of places that students can use to research employers. And in addition, you've got some things to look for here. What we want to make sure that we're emphasizing to students is that they really keep an open mind to consider a range of employers. And if you notice in looking at Handshake, the employers listed, there are a number of companies not to be overlooked. For instance, you may find a German-based employer who is a grocery store chain accepting all majors. There are department stores in some cases listed, and some of us sometimes automatically think of retail or merchandising, but often those places may even have openings in operations management or human resources. Insurance companies sometimes accept all majors as well, and I've noticed recently an opening in computer science. As far as financial services, often they accept all majors because it's not necessary for students necessarily to have a business or a financial degree for a lot of those positions. So we do encourage students to be open to a range of employers, even those with products or services or in industries that they've not previously considered. A few years ago at a career fair, a student I'd been working with, who was a double major in finance and operations management, came across a German-based grocery store chain offering an internship. So she stopped and talked to them, and the recruiter noticed on her resume that she had German listed as a language skill on her resume. So this sparked a conversation because they are a German-based chain. And the student was invited to attend that evening's information session. which she did. And there she learned more about the internship, and she was invited to attend interviews that they were holding on campus. Following a successful first interview on campus, she was invited for a second interview at their U.S. corporate office. And she got an internship as a district manager. She said she enjoyed it a lot more than she even anticipated that she would, and was retained as a campus ambassador the following semester to recruit other students to their internship program. And finally, with a semester left before graduation, she'd already accepted a permanent job offer with them and got to choose the city to which she wished to relocate with an excellent starting salary. So this is all because she kept an open mind at a career fair. And these things happen all the time. And we really appreciate it. And I know employers appreciate it too when students are willing to stop by and talk to them about opportunities that they have.
Hi everyone, my name is Leanne Wilson, and so we're going to move on to a somewhat different portion of the presentation now and talk a little bit more specifically about first impressions, or impressions that students will make on employers while they're at the fair. And so starting off just with introductions, I think a lot of times some of the things that we see students struggle with is that they're really easily intimidated by an employer, or they're really uncomfortable kind of making that initial approach and making that initial contact. We want students to be really confident in their approach, and we want them to be really comfortable introducing themselves to an employer. So some of the things to talk specifically about with your student are handshakes. So when you greet an employer, shaking hands and maintaining that eye contact. Of course, positive posture, Mary Lloyd touched a little bit about that. Just not slouching, not crossing your arms, making sure that you're maintaining eye contact and standing directly in front of the employer while they're talking, making sure the student's not gazing off to the side, seeming disinterested. And then, of course, just the natural flow of conversation. So making sure that you're reciprocating with questions, keeping the conversation going, but not monopolizing that and taking too much time. Elevator pitch is something that we see a lot of students come in to work on. There are some elements that make up a great elevator pitch, and we really encourage students to practice. So, practice with their friends, practice with family members, just kind of introducing themselves, talking about themselves and getting comfortable with that. We do have a speaking studio on campus where students can reserve a spot to go specifically and work on those public speaking skills. So this is a short example, a template of an elevator pitch. By no means is this meant to be comprehensive. Of course, students can edit this, tailor it to their specific experiences and interests. They always want to introduce themselves. It's always great to include their classification of their standing, so freshman, sophomore, junior, etc. And also, it's great to include a major, so letting employers know up front what they're majoring in, an estimated graduation time, and what maybe they're looking for in an experience. This is one that I think can sometimes be difficult for students if they haven't really narrowed down a very specific field that they're interested in. So students are always welcome to say that they're really interested in just further developing their professional skills and continuing to grow as a young professional. It's always good to use that employer research that we've talked about throughout the presentation and bring up specific positions that students are interested in to the employer as well, and letting them know that you've kind of done some research and that you visited the website. It also really gives the student a great way to follow up with a question. So can you tell me more about this position, or can you tell me more about this opportunity that your company offers? Some other things that students can talk about during their elevator pitch. They can talk about some of their previous experiences or previous jobs that they've held. For example, a student could say, I've worked part-time in sales while in college, and I'm looking to further develop those skills through an internship or a full-time position. Things like that are always a great lead-in as well. Some of the main issues that I think we see with elevator pitches are, one is probably the length. So we get a lot of students that want to have a very lengthy elevator pitch, and it can kind of monopolize that conversation with the employer. We want it to be comprehensive and make sure you're including all of that information, but again, you don't want to be overwhelming to the employer. Another issue that I think we see a lot with elevator pitches are that students can go off track. So they get nervous and they want to start telling employers about their family or about their pets, etc., about vacations that they've had. And although that's great and I'm sure very interesting, employers really want to hear more of the information that's relevant to their hiring process. So just making sure that they're staying on track and offering relevant information in that elevator pitch. Something that we really emphasize in the Career Center is following up with employers. This is something that can really be the make or break for a student. So following up, offering your business card or contact information, even resumes if employers are accepting those resumes, and then sending emails. So after every career fair, after every interview that you have, if you're able to get the recruiter's contact information, encourage your student to follow up via email, even connecting with them on LinkedIn if the student has a LinkedIn account, and attending any other info sessions or events that the employer is hosting on campus. A lot of times the recruiters that we see from specific companies are reoccurring, so the same recruiter who was maybe at the career fair will also host an info session on campus later that semester. So it's really great for a student to kind of be in constant communication with someone that they met at the career fair. They follow up with an email, and then a few months later that same recruiter is back on campus and the student gets to reconnect that way as well. So we really encourage students to kind of foster those relationships. So here's just our contact information. So we are always happy to have students in. If they have further questions, please encourage them to stop by and see us. We hope that you enjoyed the information presented in this material, and we hope that your student finds it helpful.
Thank you so much. This is Kim again from Parent and Family Programs. Excuse me. We, again, are so thankful that you joined us for today's information. We hope that you find it helpful as you prepare to support your student through this process, and hopefully they will get good jobs and internships. If you do have any questions about the information that was posted here that you heard today, feel free to go ahead and comment below the post, and we will go ahead and monitor those questions and get you answers to those questions, or you can contact our office directly, and we are happy to answer any questions that you might have as well. Next Tuesday's webinar is going to be all about how to help your student navigate roommate conflict with some of our Rockstar staff from housing and residential communities. And so again, we thank you so much for joining us for this very first webinar, and we hope that you find the rest of the series very helpful. Have a great day and roll Tide.